Welcome to the Spirit of a Badass, where we celebrate stories of courage, hope, and resiliency. I am your host, Alecia Jacobson.
Hello, my badasses listening today. Welcome. I'm recording from my bedroom. My house is like I'm switching things around. Does anybody else do that where you like one day just decide you're going to just move the rooms to different rooms? We've done this with our kids' bedrooms. I had my office once COVID happened. I moved my office from like a room with an actual door, and then it was kind of in the main area. And now it's kind of back to this little nook area that we have, but I don't have it set up for my podcasting yet. So I moved my big desktop into my bedroom. I am not comfortable. Let's just say that. But it's fine. It is fine. My kids, I've got 3 back in school. So I feel good. We had a wonderful, wonderful summer. The youngest 2 just went back yesterday and it's quiet. I have more space. I went and exercised this morning, which for the last, I don't know how many weeks it was difficult to figure out how I was going to get there. And since I stopped doing early morning trainings, I absolutely refuse to get up early and go exercise. Like even if I'm up, because I naturally sometimes wake up at 5, but no, I'm not going to a 6 a.m. class. I will wait. I'm not going to go to a 7 a.m. class. I will go to the 8:30 class. So anyway, I am feeling like renewed. I really love the kind of the laziness of summer. It's not lazy. It's the opposite of lazy, but the less structure. I love that to a point. And then it gets to the point where I'm like, bring on structure. I need it to like stay in line. So that is where I'm at. And they're all happy. They're happy. So that makes it good when they're in places that they love being. So we are all just winning here. So today's episode is going to be kind of a piggyback on episode 51. And if you haven't listened to episode 51, I would recommend listening to that one. I talk about navigating life transitions, and I was really struggling when I recorded that episode. I even broke down crying in that episode because I basically coached myself. I heard myself talking and was like, oh, I really needed to hear that. So if you haven't listened to it, go listen to that one and then come back and listen to this one. But this one, I was reflecting on why the kind of transition period was so difficult for me and kind of what I was feeling. And I was kind of vague when I was talking about the transitions, but I wasn't sure if I could share. And I asked my husband, and he said, yes, it's okay to share. So my husband is going to be doing a new role at work, which means our life is going to be different. And when I met him, he already works a non-traditional. Both of us had non-traditional. I was very early morning and would be gone before anybody got up. And he is more very late morning to 7, 8 p.m. at night. Those were his hours. There was weekends. And that's what I was used to. That's what we had 2 more children. And that is what I just could expect, even though people were like, oh, that's a lot. I don't know how you do that. It was just normal for me. And it didn't bother me. Well, now he has different things where he is going to be traveling more and his hours are going to be different. And while it's a really good thing, and I'm really excited for him because he's going to be doing something that he loves and he is excited for, and seeing the excitement in him it's just so great and it's palpable. So I'm really happy for him. However, like I just said, I was thinking once, school got back in, I was going to have this structure that I've always known to happen in September. And that is going to be different. And if you have listened to me for very long, you might know that I don't really care for different. I like to be predictable. I'm just a Taurus here trying to live my best life that is steady and consistent and very predictable, maybe boring, but I'm cool with that. And so this just threw me for a loop. And my husband and I have been working on, if you remember, let's see, gosh, I think it was 2 Januaries ago, I was saying how I wanted to fight better. I wanted to learn to fight better. Well, it turns out what we actually needed was to work on communication. It wasn't necessarily the fighting. It was the communication. And it's still a work in progress. However, we are nailing it beautifully. But it's sort of like when something happens, you go back into old patterns that are familiar and that and then all of a sudden you're underwater and can't get air, and then remember, oh shit, that's right, I have skills. And then you're like, let's pause and remember what we've learned in the skills, and then you come back to it. And this is with anything. This is with nutrition, exercise, anything that you have once lived a certain way. Like you maybe were raised this way, you had certain beliefs, certain routines, things like that for a long period of time. And then all of a sudden one day you're like, that doesn't work anymore. I need to be different. But when the stressor happens, you immediately revert back to whatever you used to do. And then all of a sudden you're like, shit, I did it. And then you have to, fix it and take your new learning and go forward. And that's just what happens. And then eventually it becomes second nature, and you don't have that sort of backslide, regression into how you used to be. And you just are who you are now. All that to say, we have this transition that happened, and I was spending some time this last weekend reflecting on why was this so difficult for me to kind of get on board with and to wrap my head around. I said in the episode on transition that I bought a calendar, and I was like, I'm going to just hone in on the schedules here. And what I realized that I was actually probably grieving was this idea of anchors. And an anchor, one of my clients, she is the one who actually said this to me a few years ago, that these anchor points that she was looking forward to is sort of what carried her through. And that really stuck with me. And when I was reflecting, I was realizing that the anchors that I either was planning on happening or was kind of part of our routine was going to be different and would not be happening. So what is an anchor? An anchor is something that you look forward to. It's something out in the future that you can count on, that is exciting, that sort of is, if it's an anchor, you can kind of pull yourself towards it, because let's face it, life throws us some shit and we have to do it. We absolutely have to. And we might get the rug pulled out from under us, and we might feel like we're drowning half the time. And we might be doing things that we have to do, but we don't really want to be doing them. And that can feel heavy. That can feel like it just sucks sometimes. We are really not meant to handle all the things that we're handling, all the schedules, all the people, we're oftentimes feel like we're isolated on an island, and we are not meant to handle all the things. So this idea of anchors is when we are out there living and managing all the people, all the things, we have these things to look forward to. And they are our anchors that kind of pull us forward. So I realized, oh, I don't have these anymore. They have all just evaporated, and I need to create them. So I'm just going to kind of talk you through here. You also, in that episode, I talked about kind of having the puzzle pieces all in your head, and that it can be helpful to get them out and kind of make sense of them to see the full picture. And by the way, this is something that we do in the Women's Coaching Circle. It is an excellent opportunity to get all the things out of your head and be able to see a different picture and create a different picture than you currently have. So if what I'm saying, like the feeling underwater, sort of isolated, that maybe you don't have any anchors right now, or maybe you had anchors and they are missing, The Women's Coaching Circle, we start October 1st, and registration, when this comes out, will have already opened on September 1st. So go to the website. The link is in the bio, and send me a message that you are interested. I do an initial call with everybody first to make sure that it indeed is a good fit. But if if you resonate at all with this episode, come join me in the circle. Okay. So I realized that all of my anchors had disappeared. And what were they? So I'm going to kind of go through how I dumped this out of my head and made sense of it. First of all, I had to make space for seeing, why is this so unsettling for me? What is kind of happening within me? Because this is a really good thing. It's just the whole transition of it I was struggling with. And so I made the space to actually even consider like, what the hell is going on here? And then I realized like there's something. So my husband used to have Wednesday afternoons that he was not working, and he coined the name Wednesday. So I knew every Wednesday I had my calendar. I cleared my calendar for that space because the kids were in school, and we would have a date. And this date so I like food. I said I was a Taurus. I like to be fed. I like to eat. I really look forward to food. And so normally it would include some sort of feeding me. And we would have lunch. Sometimes we would go get ice cream and just sit in the car together and talk. We would go for walks. There's some really beautiful trails near us. And we would sometimes go get like a coffee or a tea, and then go for a walk on one of the trails and just talk about everything and nothing. But it was essentially a couple hours of time every single week that I could count on, and we could connect together as a couple without having to navigate. It was just us. And that was an anchor. And I didn't even realize that was an anchor until all of a sudden, when we got this news and he was telling me kind of the hours and what he'd be doing, all of a sudden I'm grieving our Wednesdays, even though I made fun of them. I would tease him whenever he would say Wednesday. I'm like, oh my gosh, you are such a dork. But I love them. I love them so much. So I was grieving the loss of this anchor, this time that we had together. That was really the big anchor that I kind of had and could count on, with anticipation, because the whole idea of this anchor is anticipation. And this doesn't have to be, as you can hear what I just said, that is not an extravagant thing, what we were doing. So it doesn't have to be, big. However, it can. One of the things that were our anchors in summer, we love to see live music. And this past summer, we saw Snoop Dogg, we saw Uncle Cracker, we saw, who else did we see? I can't remember. There was another one in there too. But these were things like, I get so excited and look forward to these things. So think in your life, what are the anchors that you have? And if you don't have anchors, big or small, this is your invitation to get quiet with yourself and think about, what are the anchors maybe that you have had in the past that are like, oh yeah, those are the things I used to really love. There's one when I had the gym, if you have a community of women that you love, some of these women, we get together like every other month, and we just have food and drinks and just reconnect again. That is an anchor for me. I look forward to that connection with these women. The Women's Coaching Circle, that is an anchor. So any of you that have been a part of that is an anchor, because you know that you can anticipate that. You can show up to that space. You can feel good in the space. And then out of it, it's like you have this renewed energy, and you leave that with like this, fuck yeah, I can do this. And then you get that every week. So that is an anchor. Vacations are a big one. That was something that I really look forward to. It doesn't have to be big ones, but just maybe like a day trip. I love going to Chicago. That's something that generally we do on my birthday every year, spend a couple days in Chicago. That is an anchor. So seeing where you are. And now, like I said, like their seasons change, life changes. So when I can't do this Wednesday, so then looking at, okay, how can we structure our life now, but that we still get that time and still can have that anticipation, because when you anticipate something, think of any lovely thing that you have been anticipating. You get a dopamine release. You have all of these feel good hormones, endorphins, oxytocin that gets released as you are anticipating the event, whatever it is. Like it's almost more fun in the anticipation than sometimes the actual event. I know when we have taken our kids on trips, which is, I mean, planning a trip and trying to figure that out for all of the 8 humans, that's a lot. So we don't do that very often. But when we do, the anticipation that my kids have looking up YouTube videos of where we're going, thinking of like excursions or things like that is almost better than the actual vacation. And if you're lacking in these anchors, you are kind of depriving yourself of these hits of good hormones. And remember, it doesn't have to be big. Like ours was it was just knowing that I got 2 hours of time with him. We didn't even have to go anywhere. Like we didn't have to spend money. It was just knowing that I have that time blocked off for him, for our relationship, to laugh. I mean, he makes me laugh. And that is all it took. And you can really get creative with these anchors. Think about the things that you love, the people that you love, the friendships, the things that you maybe want to experience. This could be a dance class. This could be your exercise classes. This could be, a walk with a friend. Dream so big, but then also bring it in so small. It could be a piece of chocolate that you love, that you actually sit and use your senses and savor. It could be that 20 minutes in the parking lot before you pick up your kids and you're just waiting there. That could be an anchor. You could use that time to have a list of your friends that you haven't talked to and catch up with them. So really get big and dreamy and really small with this idea of anchors. But when you're thinking about them, think about like almost like casting out a fishing pole and it drops, but like you're throwing out your anchor. You have something to look forward to. And it's like you keep your sight set on that anchor. So when life happens, as it will, good or bad, even like good things even cause stress too. Like I said, this transition that we're going through, it is good. It just also happened to be at a time that there were so many things happening, so many things, middle of summer, all the things. And I needed that. And I was feeling like I was grieving this loss. And I'm so thankful that I gave myself the space to really understand why I was feeling so emotional and why I was feeling this like sense of loss. And because what you normally do, and I said it in the last episode 51, is that I will just shove it down, as we do, because we have to just power on and not really give it much thought. Had I actually done that, I wouldn't have realized that, oh, I'm missing these pieces. This is making me feel sad that I don't really have anything to look forward to, especially the relationship that my husband and I have. Like that is the anchor, truly. And how can I create space for that? But had I just trucked on and head down, just like do the thing, I never would have realized that this was something that I was truly grieving and truly, really reflecting on how grateful I am that we had that time and how wonderful it was to be able to do that every single Wednesday. As stupid as it sounds. Like that was really, really lovely. And how can I haven't figured out yet. I have no answer to share with you on how I'm going to go and create that space. I think it's going to take some time. And that was where, when I talk about the transition is sort of having some grace. So, but actually now that I have the understanding, it feels a lot less heavy because I'm like, oh, I've identified what it is. I don't have an answer yet. And I'm going to be okay with not having an answer, but I at least have an answer of why I was feeling so crummy. And I'm like, okay, if I'm feeling crummy about this, other people have to have the same thing. Just the sense of we have to look forward to things, that anticipation. I love anticipating. I want to think about what's next. And how can you bring that sort of anticipation into your maybe days, like break it down small, into your, weeks and months and years, take it very big and very small. And you can, if you have kids, you can bring them in on this because they're all dreamy and excited anyway. One of the women that I worked with, she used to kind of have a jar at night and they would pull a question out of it and talk about it at dinner. And that's that in itself is an anchor. That is something that they look forward to, that it would bring up all these conversations and wonderful things, talking points, and sometimes when you have tweens and teens, it can be tricky to kind of elicit that communication sometimes with them. So that was a really neat. So get creative with it. I would love to hear what your anchors are. And if maybe this sparked an idea of a new anchor, maybe you don't have any and you're like, oh, that is something I need in life, because we all need these anchors that keep us moving forward. So, all right. Thank you. Again, if you're interested in the women's coaching circle and you're like, dang girl, yeah, I need some anchors. I need a group that I can kind of count on, look forward to, and also make some really fucking awesome changes for the better in your life and have a place to put all the shit that you have to deal with that you can't just go out there and drop. And, the checkout person, like we can't do that. But you can do that in the coaching circle because it is your place to show up as you and be seen and then go out and be fucking awesome in the world. All right. Have a good day.
Spirit of a Badass is a Lit Path Studios podcast and is produced by Jamie Gale and Alecia Jacobson. Music by Shane Ivers. We'll be back with another inspiring interview. Until then, keep your spirits high and your energy badass.